Hello everyone. Now we'll continue with our series of bioinorganic chemistry, wherein in the last session we had discussed about the mechanism of oxygen transport, and we'll continue in from there. Now when the hemoglobin molecule picks up oxygen, it becomes oxyhemoglobin, and oxygen is a strong field ligand, so the pairing of electrons takes place and the ferrous ions moves into the low spin state. Now in the absence of the oxygen ligand, as we had discussed in the last session, ferrous ions are in the high spin state, wherein the configuration is T2G4 Eg2. But in the low spin state, since all electrons get paired up, the configuration of iron 2 plus or the ferrous ions in hemoglobin becomes T2G6 Eg0. As a result of this, since all the electrons now move to the T2G6 level, so the size of ferrous ions decreases and ferrous ions becomes exactly the same size as the whole of the porphyrin ring in hemoglobin, and the geometry changes to octahedral. As a result of this, the distortion in the geometry is removed. Earlier the geometry was square pyramidal and the structure was tense. Now the distortion in geometry is removed, where the geometry becomes octahedral in moving from high spin to low spin. And in this case, energy is also required since there is pairing of electrons, and this energy is called pairing energy. This energy is compensated by the relief in strain from the distorted square pyramidal to the octahedral geometry. This, as in the diagram, we can see the next explanation of the cooperative behavior of the four heme groups. We have already discussed that heme molecule exists as a tetramer. As we can see in this diagram, there are four ferrous ions. One heme molecule is existing as a tetramer, wherein there are four ferrous ions. One ferrous ion picks up one oxygen molecule. In the third case, it is picking up the second oxygen molecule. In the fourth case, it is picking up the third oxygen molecule. And in the fifth case, in the fifth diagram, fifth representation, it is picking up four oxygen molecules. So the explanation of the diagram, which is shown on the screen, is as follows. When ferrous ions fall into the slot of the four pyrrole rings as a result of the shrinkage of the size, since the spin state changes from high spin to low spin, and the spin state changes, there is pairing of electrons, and the pairing energy required is compensated for by the relief in strain from square pyramidal to octahedral. The attachment of the first oxygen molecule to hemoglobin makes the attachment of the second one even more favorable, because the structure is changing from tense to relaxed. The second has the same effect on the third one, and so on till it gets its full quota of four oxygen molecules, as we can see in this diagram. The attachment of the first oxygen molecule causes a relief in the strain. It favors the attachment of the second oxygen molecule, which in turn favors the attachment of the third oxygen molecule, and in the end all four oxygen molecules have been attached to the heme unit, which is existing as a tetramer, and this happens because there is a release in strain. The structure is changing from tense to relaxed. Now the low spin ferrous ion is smaller and fits into the hole of the porphyrin, pulling down the histidine through which it is attached to the protein. Now when we were discussing the structure of hemoglobin, we had said that ferrous ions have four porphyrin rings attached to them, and the fifth position is occupied by histidine unit, and the sixth position is occupied by oxygen in case of oxyhemoglobin, and water or carbon dioxide in case of deoxyhemoglobin. So in this case, when ferrous ions fall into the slot of the porphyrin ring, it pulls down the protein chain to which it is attached in the 5th position. This affects the tertiary structure of the protein, and thus the conformational change is transmitted to the other alpha chain. That means the protein is not a single unit, it is a combination of many amino acids. So if one histidine unit is pulled down, then the effect is transmitted to the other chain of histidine unit or the protein unit, making it easier for the second heme to pick up the oxygen molecule. And from the first to the second oxygen molecule, approximately 14 kilojoule per mole affinity is increased. That means if the attachment of the first oxygen molecules requires certain X amount of energy and it releases Y amount of energy, then the attachment of the second oxygen molecule releases Y plus 14 kilojoule mole amount of energy. That means more release of energy means the molecule becoming more stable. When oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissues, it has to give up the oxygen now. Oxyhemoglobin becomes, or it comes into existence when hemoglobin picks up oxygen from the lungs, and it is in the form of cooperative behavior which we have just studied. Now when this oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissues, it has to definitely give up the oxygen to the muscles for use, and thus the myoglobin which is present in these muscles, myoglobin we've already discussed is a protein which stores oxygen in the muscles or in the tissues. So the myoglobin which is present in the muscle tissues has a greater affinity for oxygen than hemoglobin. Hence only hemoglobin releases its oxygen to myoglobin, and therefore the reverse of cooperative effect takes place, and the giving away of each oxygen makes it more favorable for the next to be given till all the 4 oxygen molecules have been transferred. Now this is to be kept in mind that hemoglobin is a tetramer, whereas myoglobin is a monomer. So one molecule of hemoglobin releases 4 molecules of oxygen, wherein 3 molecules of oxygen are utilized by the tissues for the day-to-day action, and 1 molecule of oxygen is stored in the tissues for future use. Now understanding the effect of cooperative behavior, the high concentration of oxygen that is in the lungs, it favors oxygenation of hemoglobin. It means that in the lungs hemoglobin picks up oxygen and becomes oxyhemoglobin, and the low concentration of oxygen favors its deoxygenation. Low concentration means in the tissues, when hemoglobin reaches the tissues, the concentration of oxygen is low, and hence deoxygenation of hemoglobin is favored. That means oxygen is released by hemoglobin in the tissues. Hence it picks up oxygen in the lungs and discharges it when it reaches the oxygen starved tissues. When we understand the effect of pH on oxygen transport from hemoglobin to myoglobin, that effect is termed as Bohr's effect. Low pH favors deoxygenation of hemoglobin. Hence, where there is a greater concentration of carbon dioxide, meaning a low pH, carbon dioxide is an acidic molecule, and hence a greater concentration of carbon dioxide means a low pH. Then in that case, hemoglobin will give away its oxygen. Example, in the tissues, the concentration of carbon dioxide is high, so hemoglobin gives up its oxygen. High pH favors oxygenation of hemoglobin. Hence, where there is lesser concentration of carbon dioxide and higher pH, again to be mentioned that carbon dioxide is acidic, so if its concentration is less, then the pH will be high. In that case, hemoglobin will take up oxygen or pick up oxygen. Example, in the lungs, the concentration of oxygen is high and the concentration of carbon dioxide is less, so hemoglobin takes up oxygen from the lungs. And this pH dependence of oxygen transport from hemoglobin to myoglobin is termed as the Bohr's effect. Now, these are the fractional oxygen saturation curves for myoglobin and hemoglobin. The first curve on the left hand side is a partial pressure versus concentration oxygenation curve for myoglobin, and the second curve, which is on the right hand side, is the curve for hemoglobin, and the explanation for these particular curves goes as following. As we can see over here in the curves, the curve for hemoglobin is at a much lower value than that of myoglobin, much lower value of partial pressure. As you can see on the right hand side, it is following a sigmoid shape, an S shape, and that is the curve for hemoglobin, and the rise in the concentration of oxygen is at a much lower partial pressure value as compared to myoglobin, which is there on the left hand side. It shows that myoglobin reaches saturation of oxygen at very low partial pressures, whereas hemoglobin requires much higher pressures for a greater degree of saturation, and it never really reaches 100%. That means, in case of myoglobin, the curve on the left hand side, it shows that higher partial pressures, as you can see, between 75 to 100, higher partial pressures are required for myoglobin to reach saturation, and it reaches saturation of oxygen. Why? Because it is a monomer. It cannot hold more than one oxygen molecule at a time. Whereas in the case of hemoglobin, it can be seen that it never undergoes saturation of oxygen. The saturation never really reaches 100%, and hemoglobin is always craving for more oxygen because it is a tetramer and can pick up 4 oxygen molecules at a time, which it has to give. It has to give maximum amount of oxygen to the tissues. This is discussing about the structural difference between hemoglobin and myoglobin, which is in a way also an explanation of the curves we have just discussed. Myoglobin is an approximate monomer of hemoglobin. The molecular weight of myoglobin is around 17,000. The molecular weight of hemoglobin is around 64,500. It's approximately 4 times or slightly less than 4 times. It is because of the presence of the 4 heme groups in hemoglobin that it is able to exhibit the cooperative behavior and thus can bind to more oxygen at a higher concentration. So, in the lungs, where the concentration of oxygen is high, hemoglobin has a tendency to bind to more and more oxygen molecules till it gets its quota of 4 oxygen molecules at a time, and this is because of the fact that hemoglobin exists as a tetramer. Now, all these studies on hemoglobin as well as myoglobin, they have also been carried out outside the system, outside the biological system, by preparing certain model compounds, and these will be termed as the model studies on oxygen carriers. So studies have been carried out on model compounds which need certain requirements. Number one, the model compound should be a reversible oxygen carrier. Now this is a major requirement for any kind of an oxygen carrier, whether it is the oxygen carrier in the biological system, that is the natural oxygen carrier, which is hemoglobin, or whether it is a model compound which is a synthetic oxygen carrier being studied outside the biological system. So it should be a reversible oxygen carrier. That means it should have a good tendency to pick up oxygen molecules as well as release them whenever required, because once a model compound picks up oxygen molecule, then it has to release it, because that is the only function of the model compound or of hemoglobin. If hemoglobin is picking up oxygen and not releasing it in the tissues, then it is of no use, because ultimately the role of hemoglobin is to release oxygen in the tissues. So the model compound should be a reversible oxygen carrier. That means it should pick up as well as easily release the oxygen wherever it is required. The second important point is that the oxygen carrier itself should not get oxidized. In the model systems, when the scientists prepare the oxygen carriers, they have to take care that the oxygen carrier itself should not get oxidized. That means when it picks up oxygen, it should remain in the original state. It should itself not get oxidized by the oxygen which it is picking up. In case of the fact when the oxidation takes place, for example, if we consider the heme unit which contains Fe2+, it can change to hematine, which is now containing Fe3+ in presence of oxygen. Now this forms a peroxo-bridged binuclear complex which cannot carry oxygen. Fe3+ is of no use in carrying oxygen, or we can say that hematine is of no use in carrying oxygen. And why is this? This is because of the fact that in Fe3+, the configuration of Fe3+ becomes D5, S0 D5. D5 we all know is a half filled d orbital which is very stable. Fe2+ is in a D6 state, Fe3+ is a D5 state. D5 state is a half filled d orbital which is very stable and it does not undergo any kind of reaction easily. So once Fe2+ changes to Fe3+, this is of no use in carrying oxygen. Here comes in the role of the globin part which is surrounding the heme unit. The protein or the globin part which surrounds the heme provides a hydrophobic protection to Fe2+, so that both oxygen and water cannot approach simultaneously, and this is because water is required along with oxygen for the oxidation of Fe2+, that is ferrocyanins. So what does this mean? What do we understand by this particular paragraph? Is that heme contains Fe2+. Fe2+ means where iron is in the D6 state. When oxygen approaches heme unit and in any case water is also approaching it simultaneously, then Fe2+ might change to Fe3+, or it might oxidize to Fe3+, and Fe3+, as already mentioned, is a D5 system which is of no use in carrying oxygen. So around the heme there is the globin part or the protein part which is providing a hydrophobic protection. Hydrophobic means which is water repelling. It does not allow water molecules to approach the heme unit if in case oxygen is there, because for conversion of Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus, both oxygen as well as water are required simultaneously. In that case, oxidation will occur. Also, the globin part or the protein part keeps the heme groups sufficiently apart to hinder the dimer formation which follows after oxidation to give a stable species. If in case Fe2 plus or ferrous ions get oxidized to Fe3 plus or ferric ions, then they tend to form a dimer. So, the role of the globin part, a second important role of the globin part, is also to keep the heme groups apart from each other, so that dimer formation does not take place. Dimer formation will take place only when the molecules are close to each other. So, the globin part, which is the bulky part, keeps them separate, keeps them far apart from each other. And the same is seen in the model systems, which again are studied outside the globin part, outside the biological system. When the kind of protection globin provides to the heme group is studied in model molecules, Fe2 plus is embedded in a polystyrene matrix, which is the same representation of a porphyrin ring in the natural system, and a substituted imidazole is put in the 5th position, which is same as a histidine in the natural system in the 5th position. It is a part of the protein, it is a part of the globin part. This species now serves as a reversible oxygen carrier at low temperatures. There are 4 phenyl groups, one on each pyrrole of heme, which behave like a fence for any approaching water molecule. That means in the model system, there are 4 phenyl groups which are surrounding a ferrous unit, a ferrous ion on each pyrrole unit, and these 4 phenyl groups, these are very bulky groups, they behave like a fence and they do not allow water molecule to approach near the ferrous ions in model systems. We are talking about model systems right now. So, model system studies we will continue in our details in our next session. Thank you.